It's really a pleasure to participate in this first panel discussion. And I mean, speaking as a Palestinian, I think that Mr. Ahmed captured the main words that I wanted to talk about: peace, justice, equality, and equal implementation of international law. And I think that as young people, the most important challenge that you will face and you are facing as a future decision makers is to restore credibility in international law, because international law has been eroding, unfortunately, due to the current circumstances. As based on my own experience as a Palestinian, we have been living under a brutal occupation, colonial apartheid regime for the last 58 years, and we are still fighting for justice and for dignity, equal dignity to all. Uh, Therefore, your mission, and this is the responsibility of our generation, that we are uh, uh, providing, we are passing to you an international system, unfortunately, that is eroding the credibility of the rule-based international system, is eroding due to the selective implementation of international rules. And speaking as a Palestinian diplomat and as someone who has worked for years with international and multilateral system, I have witnessed this double standard in the implementation of international rules. I have witnessed this reality firsthand in the work of international institutions. The selective application of international law has contributed to deep crisis of trust among people and among nations. When rules are applied to some and ignored for others, international law loses its credibility. And therefore, this is your mission as young generations, as decision makers, as a future leading leaders in the international community, to restore this credibility of international law and to restore credibility in multilateralism, because it has been weakened, and injustice that it created could contribute and contributed to prolonged conflict. This is not only a legal failure of our generation, it is also a moral failure that contributes to fuel current conflict. Let me end by a story, because maybe the easiest thing to understand is sometimes to refer to some stories. There was once a city that prided itself on having the most beautiful gate in the world. Above the gate, a golden inscription reads, "All equal before the law." But behind the gate, the golden gate, there was two entrances. One narrow entrance, dark, very well guarded, and another entrance, wide, cleaned, and well lit. When a weak worker broke the law, he used to be guided through the narrow gate, immediately held accountable publicly and punished publicly. When a powerful merchant broke the same rule, he was escorted through the wide gate, where law was a subject of interpretation and law delayed and neglected. Over time, the citizens of the city stopped believe in the inscription, "All are equal in front before the law." They no longer argue about the rules. They were arguing about which gate you will be escorted through. And one day the people said, if the law depends on who you are, then it is no longer law. It is only a mask worn by power. And unfortunately, this is the reality of our current international system. When the interpretation of law depends on political alliances, international law is losing its credibility, and therefore it is your responsibility to reestablish credibility in international law through your work, through the young movements, through your participation. Some of you will be members of parliament. Some of you will be diplomats like myself. And therefore, it is in your hands to reestablish the international order, to maintain an order based on the rule of law and not on the rule of selective implementation of international law. And as Palestinians, we witness this, we live it on a daily basis, that our cause is still a matter of international politics due to the selective implementation of international law, as you can see it today in our relations with Israel. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. That was just a wonderful speech, and I would like to repeat some of what's been said. If law depends on who you are, it is just a mask. And I think it's just so powerful. So please remind it. Thank you so much. My next question will be addressed to His Excellency Riyad Yassin Abdallah. Ambassador, how can dialogue and solidarity can be sustained internationally when conflicts become prolonged and global attention begins to fade? Thank you.
I think one of the greatest challenges of prolonged conflicts it's not only their duration, as my colleague here, Palestine is now about 70 years and more, and in Yemen now we about 11 years conflict. This is a gradual fading of international attention. Unfortunately, as the crisis persists, of course, they risk becoming normalized somehow. And this is where solidarity is truly, tested. I'm giving an example about Yemen. We are facing a multi-layers problems. We have the issue of south of and north. We have the issue of geopolitical situation, a very strategic position. As you know, the map of Yemen, we have always suffered from an economic problems. We have all kinds of problems coming all together, unfortunately. Of course, sustaining dialogue in such context requires perseverance and consistency. We all believe firmly that dialogue must not depend on headlines or political cycles. It must encode in a long-term vision for peace. This means maintaining open diplomatic channels, supporting inclusive dialogue platforms, and ensuring that all voices, particularly those most affected by conflict, remain part of the conversation. International solidarity must also evolve over time. In the early stages of crisis, attention often focuses on emergency response. As conflict endures, solidarity must expand to include development, resilience, and institution building, supporting education, livelihoods, and social cohesion, helps societies preserve hope and prepares the ground for sustainable peace. Equally important is the role of international partners in keeping forgotten crises on the global agenda. This requires moral leadership. It requires reminding the world that the value of human life does not diminish with time. Multilateral forums, civil society, and diplomatic mission all have responsibility to ensure that prolonged conflicts are not sidelined. Solidarity is not measured by intensity alone, but by endurance. It's demonstrated through continued engagement, predictable support, and respect for the aspiration of affected populations. By reaffirming shared values, peace, dignity, and human rights, the international community can sustain dialogue and ensure that even in the longest conflicts, hope remain alive. We should not ignore the will of the people in favor of the interests of major powers. The voices and will of populations must be given greater weight than the shifting interests of powerful states. While the interests of large countries evolve and change, the will of the people remains the cornerstone of lasting stability.
Thank you so much. My next question will be addressed to Friederike Fritz. How can evidence-based policymaking better integrate youth voices and grassroots realities into peace and trust-building strategies? Thank you.
Thank you so much again. So thinking about evidence-based policymaking and integrating the youth in a better way, we have to think of the problem first. Evidence-based policymaking has a problem. It has a credibility problem. So evidence is data collected about communities and not with them, which just marks the first part of it. So the connection to lived realities just gets lost. One key point here to avoid this would be to raise political awareness, understanding of processes, interest and participation measures, and to raise this from a very early age on. You can think of it like of a muscle which needs training. And just like we push for STEM subjects in school, the same must apply for political consciousness. And without this foundation, genuine participation later becomes just not possible. As a solution, we have to meet people where they are. Social media could be one powerful tool if used meaningfully. So it's not a one-way government communication tool, but it must enable real dialogue. Then you can think of other interactive formats like mobile offers, buses going from school to school, or, you know, engaging people that would not go to town hall meetings. And then we have to expand what counts as evidence. The problem is that the evidence we are basing our decisions on today are official statistics, scientific studies, expert opinions, and quantitative data. And don't get me wrong, this is very, very important to implement measures, any measure, but it often misses how policy actually lands in people's daily lives. So we need to understand the evidence more broadly, and we should also take into account the lived experience of people, like community-generated data and qualitative research. So we have to implement the knowledge of young people about their own reality, about their own community into our political decisions. And then there is a concrete demand. We have to fund young researchers studying their own communities, and we have to treat local organizations as partners rather than objects of research. So we do not research about people, but with them. So the demand applies actually across all questions today. Participation cannot end with consultation. We have always think one step ahead. What are our learnings? How do we identify trends? And how do we develop participation formats further based on insights? And without systematic evolution, there will be no knowledge about what works, and we always have to start from scratch. People don't see their contributions making a difference, they will just stop contributing. As a result, we have to think of youth and grassroots organizations that they have to see their impact within our daily politics, and they must see that institutions learn and adopt, and then we can move outsiders to become investor partners. So the goal is not adding voices to our very established processes, but broadening the foundation of it. And I think this is something we have to constantly work on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Friederike, and for your powerful perspective on how institutions to build trust, not through statements, but through consistent and credible actions. And we need to raise this credibility. Thank you so much. My next question will be addressed to His Excellency Adel Attia. From your perspective, what role can dialogue, education, and cultural heritage protection play in rebuilding solidarity and keeping hope for peace alive, particularly among younger generations living amid conflict? Thank you.
Thank you again. Well, again, this is an excellent question for a Palestinian who's been, again, fighting for peace and justice for a very long time. And I think that dialogue is language, using a language, using vocabularies, and our language. This is the permanent question, whether the language impacts our social and intellectual environment, or the opposite, or the society and the environment which impact our perception of the world. And I think it goes in both directions. Our perception of the world is based on a political discourse, and this political discourse creates a political culture that is shared by young people like yourself. But you also can contribute to shape this political discourse in order to create a political culture more oriented to dialogue, more oriented to justice, more oriented to equality and equal implementation of international law. So the dialogue between people, between nations, you are lucky today to live in this very world with social media, that you have access without traveling to the four corners of the world to have information on that. But at the same time, this reality poses challenges, because the interpretation of information could impact our perception of the world. And therefore, we need more dialogue to correct some stereotyping, to correct some misunderstanding, misinterpretation, in order to create grounds solid and strong for dialogue. And it is essentially your role to promote dialogue between cultures, between people from different continents, between people from different colors and from different religious belief. And I think this is the future of our world, again, whether we understand each other in a positive dialogue that needs a positive, constructive political discourse that shapes our perception of the world. And again, this is your responsibility to work on that, or whether we stick to some political discourse that polarize our world today. And unfortunately, this is the reality today. When you look to the international reality today, unfortunately, we are back to I have the feeling that we are back to the period between the First and the Second World War, where the political discourse is more based on power, is more based on polarization between people. And therefore, this is one of the main obstacles, one of the main challenges that you young people will face to overcome those stereotyping, to create ground, conducive for a positive dialogue, because this is the only way to continue living in peace and in security in our global environment, in our global world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. That was very powerful. Thank you so much. And I think what stands out the most is that it's our responsibility to promote dialogue from different cultures and from different religions, and that can make such a big difference in the political culture. Thank you so much. Now I would like to invite our distinguished guest, Mr. Sami Salami, the president of the association Les Compagnons. Thank you so much for coming. We're honored to have you today.
Thank you. I'm sorry for the delay. I came from Morocco, so a little bit of.
You're very welcome. We are honored that you could make it here. And I would like to ask you the first question today. From your work at the community and civil society level, How does people-to-people dialogue contribute to rebuilding trust where formal diplomacy may struggle? Thank you.
For my part, I'm working mainly on the. It's okay? Okay. So I'm working with my association on all civic action and to use dialogue to connect people. So we launched 1 year ago an event, Voice of Pieces. So we try to bring together people that we don't see often speaking and dialoguing together. For example, we try to make a connection between Jews and Muslims. So because here in France, since what's happened on the 7th October, people think that the conflict it's everywhere. So people are almost on war even here in the civic, in the citizen position. So we try to show that the reality is it's very different, and we don't want to bring people who thinks who have the same ideas. We want to bring people, for example, from the Jews, people who are supporting Israel, and for the Muslim people who are supporting Palestine, and try to make like a dialogue and see what's happened after. And thanks to this, we get a very powerful dialogue between the guy who's representing the Jew community here and the big association whose name is the CRIF in France, so the representing the interest of Israel, and Muslim representing the spiritual board, but the support to Palestine. And we see that we find a lot of common point between them, and they start to be friends. So the Sheikh Muslim and the representative of the Jew communities start to be friends. So the dialogue they have done on this event start a new relation, and then the Alain Krief is that the guy representing the Jewish communities come to Morocco to meet this year and to meet his family and to start a friendship. And this is how it's just symbolism. This is not something that who will change the situation on the conflict over there. But this is just an example that when you start to bring some people who doesn't speak together, or it doesn't get the image that they can find a common idea, just to make them around the table and to let them to speak, you can see like a big influence and big changement. So we try on the civic action because I believe that you don't have to be like the president of a country to change everything. We can change things in the local things. We can do some little things on the local environment, and they can get a big impact, because this small event we start in Paris became like an international congress in Morocco, and we are preparing the next event in Paris in 2026 with like a more important politician and more important influent people was planned to come. So as we can see, if you can just have a good intention and start some little things, you can have, I think, important results. And me, I'm not young as everybody here on the room, but your generation, with thanks to the social network, thanks to all the information you get, you can like have a big influence on big conflict as well, and just for small things. So I believe on small things. So do small things, and maybe you can make a big difference.
Thank you so much, Mr. Samislami. That's so powerful to understand that just little initiatives can bring peace building closer to people's lived realities. Thank you so much again. And my next question will be addressed to you again. What practical steps can grassroots organizations take to ensure that local voices and lived experiences meaningfully inform national and international peace efforts? Thank you.
Thank you again. I mean, I do believe in the power of youth movements because, as I said, that you are the future decision makers. You will be diplomats, members of parliament. You will draft legislations. You will contribute to writing international text and international laws equally. So this is the only way that we correct what you will witness in the current international system as a distorting functioning of the international system. You will be the only one that will be tasked, that you will be asked to correct those distortions and to bring international law to be based on the values of equality, of respect, of the dignity of every citizen of this world, disregard its religion, disregard its color, and disregard its geographic appartenance. So, and therefore, it's the mission of the young people based on dialogue between different cultures, between different countries, to empower international system and to safeguard what we have built as a system based on the power of law, and to work in order not to transform this power of law to the law of power. And dialogue to overcome stereotyping, because as I said, social media is an excellent communication tools, but sometimes it generates informations that could distort reality, that could incite people to some kind of interpretation, some kind of understanding of other cultures. But I think the dialogue among people from different colors, from different horizon, is the best way to overcome those stereotyping based on religion, based on color, or based on political argument. And it's also, I will conclude with that, the dialogue is the only way also to understand the other, the needs of the other. And we have, in my experience, went through a very long period of dialogue, unfortunately, without delivering, without being successful, because the political discourse in which our dialogue has been conducted is a negative driving discourse. While people have the will to speak together, there is a permanent, and I'm referring to Israel, to Palestine, there is a permanent political discourse that incites against the other, that denies the right of the others, that rejects the rule-based international order. And therefore, the result of this dialogue, unfortunately, is not very visible today in our reality between Israelis and Palestinians. And I will end by saying, whatever the current reality, dialogue is important, because you don't make peace with friends. You make peace with somebody with whom you have something in difference, something you are fighting with him. And therefore, peace is not only between governments, it's also among people. And therefore, youth dialogue is very important to consolidate any future peace on earth or between Palestinians and Israelis. Thank you.
We appreciate your insight. Thank you, Your Excellency. My next question will be addressed to Mr. Sami Salami. What would you like to say to these young people regarding making peace a reality? Thank you.
I don't know what to say, but I know that, like Her Excellency, dialogue, it's, I think, the mean way to bring peace. Me, I have 2 points of view. I have the civic point of view and the spiritual point of view. I know that in my spirituality, I learn to see the other one like a mirror. So when you are open wide on your relation with other people, and you don't see them like another part, but like a reflect that what we have, and this is more easy to understand, to use our relation to discover who we are and to bring this link with people, not like opponent, but like a mirror, like a friend, like somebody who I can learn about me, thanks to his image and thanks to what I understand of the other one. But I think this way it's a way that helped me myself to organize some association action, some civic action to try to keep the peace, because bring peace is it's very difficult. It's not something easy, but this is like, I think, some way I use to for myself to try to be peaceful with people, to see the other people like a mirror is my secret. So I don't know, maybe it can help.
Thank you so much, Mr. Samsalami. Thank you for being here today. We'll now open the floor for the questions from the audience. If you would like to ask the question, please state your name, your country, the speaker you're addressing the question to, and one short question only. Thank you. Please ask your question.
Thank you very much to the panelists today for sharing your knowledge and experience to us young people. My name is Dr. Gloria Kenyatta. I come from Kenya, and I have a question which I would want to direct to Federica in terms of public participation. One thing I know is that public participation is one of the main channels whereby you can connect the people and governments. And so in terms of when you want to have dialogue with the people, that is very critical. But then we have a challenge because public participation should be able to bring about ownership of policies, credibility and legitimacy. But in many cases, it is actually used where I come from and from the African region for superficial legitimacy. It's done because it's also context-wise. So meaning that the threshold for public participation is somehow not there. So I would want to know, are there any basic requirements, the minimum threshold to undertake public participation so that it has an impact, and how it's done in terms of policies which are there, so that there could be a link between the input of the citizens and what ends in the policy. So is there a minimum threshold for public participation? For example, where is it done? How many people participate? How do you inform people that there is public participation at this venue, and so on and so forth? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think you can hear me. Thank you very much for the question. I think this is really tipping the downside of public participation when you think of it, because obviously you have to carry it out most of the times as a government. And how do you ensure that people participate meaningfully? I don't know about all the countries, obviously, but you have to, or what I'm working on right now is studying the responsiveness of public participation. So this would be like one key indicator you can definitely use to see how much the income really altered the outcome of participation. And then if you connect it to the people participating, to the amount of statements made, to the amount of alternatives presented, basically, and how it altered it, you can create this indicator by which you can measure if the outcome is based on the participatory measure, or if it is just done and ended. But yeah, this is a lot of work. So, but this is one way to measure it for sure. Yeah, thank you. I hope this kind of goes in your direction.
Thank you so much.
I may add about public participation. Just, I think each country have its own situation. Just put an example. For example, in most of, for example, in the Gulf countries, as an example, there is a direct contact between the governing body and the people. We have such a thing called Diwan or Majlis, where people can come and share their worries, their problems with the rulers, which is sometimes looks like a small parliament every day happening. Some of other countries, they have what's called the parliament and this kind of things. But each country have its own prospects for this kind of participation of the people.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency.
I'm sorry, I just have to add something. It just came to my mind that is obviously also about the whole approach of politics towards this measure. So, for example, in the department I'm working, we implemented a service for citizens so they can call us anytime or reach in their concerns and we talk it through. So I think this is also a measure where you show some respect to the citizens that are concerned about whatever measure. But it's an approach and it has to be lived, not just written down.
Thank you so much again, Frederica. I would like to ask if anyone else would like to ask the question. Yes, please.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. My name is Lucy. I'm from France and Switzerland. I would like to ask a question to Mr. Abdel Atid. So you've talked about how international law is losing its credibility, and I think it's very interesting considering the world we live in today, especially what happened after the World Economic Forum a few weeks ago in Davos, Switzerland. I think what you said is extremely interesting considering the tension that are raising. And I would like to ask you if you think, because you've said before that you feel like we're living between the First and the Second World War, do you think that maybe we should lead towards a new system instead of trying to restore something that may seem to be broken? Or do you still believe in international law and that it can be restored and still be strong through dialogue, or maybe it's something that's going to be too hard to rebuild? Thank you.
Thank you, Mademoiselle, for this question. Yes, I think that we should adapt our system to the current challenges, and therefore there are too many countries, especially from the global south, pushing. They have been pushing for the reform of the United Nations since very long time to be able to address the current challenges and to allow equal representation of continent of people. Because what we have seen today, and as you said, what we have seen in Davos, that big power hijacked international law, and they interpret international law according to their national interests. International law is not applied equally, and therefore international law is losing its credibility because of the behavior of those driven international powers who interpret law according to their interest. Remember my Golden Gate. If law is not applied equally, it loses its credibility, and it has become an instrument of political power. And therefore, yes, we need to work seriously, and this is another challenge to you young people, to reform the international system in order to restore the credibility of the international rules-based order. Otherwise, I think that I hope that I'm mistaken, because I have the feeling I didn't live the period between the First and the Second World War, but based on my reading, based on my knowledge, that the international current situation looks very much like this period between the two wars, that there are new alliances, there are new political powers that emerging, there are rivalry, there are dispute, there are many countries trying to hijacked and to interpret international law, to instrumentalize international law for geopolitical interest, and this will lead to a disorder that all will pay the price if it happened.
Thank you so much for a powerful answer.
Okay, so we can take 2 more questions here.
We're going to have 2 more questions, please. Please.
Thanks. Thanks. Greetings. I am Florinda, Assistant Country Director for Albania. Also, I was member of the board selection of Peace Summit to select of this talented young people here. I have 3 questions for Ambassador of Palestine to UNESCO. Yes. Because was your story about Golden Gate was very like a lecture for all of us as a youth generation. What do you think about solution of 2 states with Israel, conflict Israel-Palestine? What do you think about of Board of Peace created by President of United Nations, Mr. Trump? And according to your experience, your story, culture, during the centuries, with this conflict that is for century, let's say, between Palestine and Israel, was not have a solution for century. What do you think is the best choice to make a definitely peace between these 2 states? Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. I'm afraid we can take only 1 question because of the time deadline. So I would give His Excellency to the power to choose. Thank you.
Maybe I think 1 question will be all of them because all of 3 of them are related, so it's okay.
I'll try to do it quickly. Well, the 2-state solution, as a representative of the state of Palestine, this is our first option. We have been committed to the 2-state solution, and we've been advocating for that. And let me say that I am paid to advocate for the 2-state solution, and we subscribe and we endorse the 2-state solution since 1993 when we started negotiations with Israel. But unfortunately, the road to the 2-state solution is very complicated. And I just give a very small example that will explain perfectly the situation on the ground and what could be the future of the 2-state solution. When we started negotiating with Israel in 1993, there was 150,000 settlers in the occupied West Bank. Today, 2026, there is 750,000 settlers in the West Bank. So by the time we were negotiating as Palestinians to advance toward the 2-state solution, because the 2-state solution requires the end of the occupation, Israel has been using those talks, peace talks, to empower the occupation and to build more settlements and to put more settlers in the West Bank. Now, for us as Palestinians, as a Palestinian leadership, the 2-state solution today is the most viable, the most realistic solution to the conflict. But if Israel continues its behavior to destroy the prospect of a 2-state solution, I mean, if it's not a 2-state solution, it should be something else. The something else cannot be apartheid, cannot be colonialism, cannot be an occupation forever. I've lived under occupation since I was born in 1968, so all of you know my age now. But the occupation started a year before I was born. So it has been 58 years that we have been living under this brutal colonial occupation, and the double standard in the implementation of international law regarding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is one of the main reasons today that eroded the international credibility, because there is obviously a double standard when you look to other regions in the world where the leading political powers are applying international law selectively. But when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian, there is a kind of hesitation to apply the international-based rule order to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Well, the Board of Peace, the peace plan presented by President Trump has the merit to stop the war of genocide in Gaza that lasted for two years. During those 4 years, 71,000 people. Gaza is very small. It's 350 square kilometers. It is 2 times the Paris 5 arrondissement with 2 million people, and Israel dropped over 150,000 tons of bombs over this tiny territory. And the 150,000 tons of bombs, to give you an idea, it equals 10 times the Hiroshima nuclear bomb. So you can imagine how many, the destruction is massive, the suffering is massive, but the Board of Peace and the peace plan presented by President Trump has the merit to stop this war, to stop this suffering, not totally, because it's a unilateral ceasefire. Now, Hamas totally stopped fighting, but Israel has been continue shooting on the Palestinians since the beginning of the ceasefire. More than 470 Palestinians were killed. Now, for the future, any peace plan for Gaza, it should be part of the two-state solution. But the Board of Peace, until today, we didn't see that there is a strong, obvious, clear commitment to this political horizon to implement the two-state solution. And again, this plan is very welcome because it's stopped the war. But for the future, for a sustainable peace agreement and settlement between Israelis and Palestinians, I don't think that this plan is giving us enough information. The best choice for peace, as I said, we choose the path of two-state solution, and we still committed to the two-state solution. But as I said, if it is not a two-state solution, it should be something else. Palestinians cannot live under an apartheid regime forever. And when I'm saying it's an apartheid regime, maybe how can I say that? It does not reflect the reality on the ground. It's even worse than that. I come from there. Just 2 weeks ago, I was there because I served at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The reality on the ground is really different. So if it's not a two-state solution, let us listen to the Israelis if they have a better idea than the two-state solution. But it cannot be a permanent occupation, a permanent subjugation of the Palestinian people until the end. And here, implementation, equal implementation of international law is important. Thank you. I hope that I didn't.
Thank you so much for wonderful questions and for wonderful answers. Now we close the question session. But before we close our panel talk, I would love to invite all speakers to share a very brief reflection, just a few sentences about how they think the panel talk was going. And we start with Mr. Sami Salami. Thank you.
So I'm better in French. So this is I'm very happy to participate today because I see like young people for all the planet everywhere coming and be involved on peace. So this is, I think, the good point for to see the future better than what you say. I never think that I will live World War period. I was born in the 80s, and I never think that the war could come in Europe. So now it's close. It's already in Europe, and we are talking about a war maybe in France in few years. So the war is not something fixed. It's moving, and people is making. So I'm very happy to be with, I think, the generation who wants only the peace and will bring the peace thanks to dialogue and thanks to all the tools we get. So thank you to be here, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. Your Excellency, Riyad Yassin Abdallah.
shared values, yeah. I mean, the shared values of, peace, dignity, and human rights makes us all very, optimistic. In spite of the recent situation all over the world, a lot of crisis, a lot of problems. We are, if you look to the critical situation everywhere nowadays, you will become despair and frustrated. But for you as a young people, always you are the hope, and you should always look to the light at the end of this dark channel. I think this kind of meetings and conference should be encouraged and will be done in spite of all difficulties you are facing. Thank you very much.
We're honored to have you here. Thank you. Miss Friederike Fritz.
Thank you. I think as a final statement, I just want to underline the power of communication. We talked so much today about dialogue and how important it is to overcome all the current crises, basically. So I really want to emphasize that we need to keep on having those meaningful exchanges, not only between governments, but between all of us. I think this is why we all are here, to further enhance it. But this is, in my view, the main thing that we also underline today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Your Excellency, Adel Latif.
Thank you. It's not about Palestine. It's about justice. It's about dignity. It's about peace. It's about equal implementation of international law. It is about accountability, because if we are to be credible, if we need to be credible, we need to hold accountable everybody who violates international law. Dialogue is the only way to overcome stereotyping, to overcome all prejudice, and to build or to strengthen the international rules-based order. And this will be one of the challenges that you will face in your professions, in your daily life as young generations. Thank you.
Thank you so much for our speakers today. Now I would like to ask Mohammed Ahwat to make a conclusion.
Thank you, moderator. And before I give my final remarks, I would like to welcome the ambassador of Kenya and the ambassador of Iraq. Thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate. We are so delighted to hear you on the second panel. And honestly, I'm very inspired about all the discussion we have had here. Excellencies and Sami and Frederick, they rightly mentioned very important points which the young people should always consider while being associated with any of the information they receive or any of the initiative they take. I believe that I agree, dialogue is the only way to maintain peace and to combat all the challenges which definitely brings suffering to the human beings, to the humanity as well in total. And I would like to just mention the little bit recap. Before coming to the Paris, we organized a high-level panel discussion in the UN headquarters in New York on 16th of January in sponsorship with the Permanent Mission of Pakistan to the UN. And we organized a high-level session which was about the UN Charter at 80, reimagining conflict prevention and resolution. And the ultimate discussion we had there, which I want to correlate here, is we, the young people and the institution, we always want the member states, international organizations, the world leaders to abide international law, respect international law, respect the UN Charter. We have an institution in place already, which can help and guide humanity and provide equal justice and make sure that when there is a violation of international law, they hold them accountable. But unfortunately, the institutions has been weakened. The institution is not implementing, unfortunately not able to implement its own mandate, as we see the more authoritarianism And we see the more controlled leadership, for example, from other countries, they're controlling the institutions, which is definitely creating more sufferings. So we don't want a new UN, for example, or new institutions. We want to restructure the institutions we already have in place. And we believe that there should be more members in the Security Councils. We do not have representation from Africa in the UN, in the Security Council, for example. We do not have so much representation from Asia. We want more member states to be the part of Security Council, for example, and also when the decisions are made, that decisions should be made with 2/3 majority, not by one single member veto and everything is gone. We have seen merciless vetoes from few member states when it came to the plight of Palestinian people. And it really helped more suffering only, nothing else. So as an institution, as a member states, I think that we always keep putting up the pressure from the public peacefully, and always mention that if they are going in the wrong direction, we must submit our protest. And as a young people, we have this responsibility to stand by truth, stand by justice, and always make sure that information we receive, we must verify that information, because the most dangerous thing which I am afraid here happening in the world is this information, which is creating more polarization in the society, which is further dividing the human beings and creating all the chaos in the world. So in my closing, I would like to mention once again, thank you, Excellencies, thank you, the panelists, for sharing your invaluable insights. We feel very much enlightened, empowered. And as an institution, Global Peace Chain and the young people, we vouch that we will always be standing by truth, justice, and always keep realizing the institution, the member state, to abide international law. And I'm very hopeful that you will see so many beautiful faces in the policy making and decision making corridors, and we will do differently. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mohammed Ahmad. As we conclude this session, I would like to thank you all. Thank you. Merci à tous.
That's what I was doing.